day. Ordinary people are living extraordinary lives. What makes them extraordinary isn't fame or fortune, it's purpose. Purpose gives life its joy, its zest, its meaning. So how do we discover that purpose? How do we live it out? And how do we bring those dreams of living with purpose to life? The People of Purpose podcast explores these questions by sitting down with people who are living it out in real time. You'll hear their stories, their struggles, and their breakthroughs, and maybe even discover your own next step toward living a life on purpose. I'm Penny Peerboom, and this is the People of Purpose podcast. I'm on a mission to transform lives. I want to help you discover your purpose and your passion, or if you've already discovered it, to elevate it by equipping you with strategies and systems that produce extraordinary and sustainable results to build a life worth living and a legacy worth leaving. Because in the end, it's not just about what you leave for people. More importantly, it's about what you leave in people. Thank you for joining me. Together we rise. I was so honored to get to interview a man whose life's work has transformed how we think about education. Michael Peter Soria is a pioneer in special education, world-renowned, I might say, for his groundbreaking work in creating sensory classrooms and bridging understanding among teachers, administrators, parents, and students. Some people discover their purpose much later in lives. Others, like Pete, are fortunate enough to discover it early and dedicate their lives to it. And yet, even after nearly 4 decades of impact, he continues to elevate his game, always learning, always innovating, and always expanding his reach. In his groundbreaking book and guide, Sensory Smart Classrooms, Pete reframes how we see classroom behavior. What looks like misbehavior is often a child's nervous system asking for help. He helps educators reimagine behavior through the lens of sensory regulation and shows how classrooms, though not originally built with sensory sensitive students in mind, can and should be redesigned to include them. Whether you're a general education teacher, a special education professional, an administrator, support staff, or even a parent homeschooling your child, his insights are practical, compassionate, and transformative. The book, along with the companion workbook, became a #1 bestseller in its category on Amazon. Today, Pete travels the world sharing his wisdom, equipping schools and communities to create environments where every child feels seen, supported, and empowered to thrive. Pete's story is purpose in motion. Today, we'll dive into how his vision shaped extraordinary outcomes and how he continues to grow and what we can all learn from the way he lives with purpose. Hi, Pete. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to talk to you because your book just came out and I thought this would be a perfect opportunity. I've always been fascinated because what I've learned in life is that people get to a certain age and they're like tired of their job and they're ready to move on to something else. You have dedicated your whole life to this industry, and you're going to tell us what that industry is and tell us a little bit about what you've done over your probably 4 decades of work in this field.
Well, first, Penny, thanks for having me. It's great to see you. I'm so excited about what your launch and your podcast. And I know you didn't mean to make me feel old, but now I feel old. 4 decades. But
I say it all the time. 4 decades. Yes, we're old and
but I've
wise.
been wiser, right? But I've enjoyed basically every minute of my career. I have been in education like you. I have been in the classroom. And then this something called state testing was coming on the horizon. And I'm like, do I really want to subject my career and my students to teaching around the test? So I thought, what can I do from there? And I love education so much. I thought, what can I do to support students and educators and not be in the classroom. And that's really where it all started, Penny, is that I looked around and I found a company that created special education materials, which I've always supported. I wasn't a special education teacher. I did teach resource when I was in school, but I do know during a lot of the my planning period and prep period, people would be asking me, hey, how do I work with these students? And I would give them my advice and really gravitate for that. So that's where it all started in 1994 when I found a company that, again, created materials for special needs students.
I'm going to share from an educator standpoint. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in education, but I started in preschool. And what I found is that is when you first start noticing signs of a child with special needs. And what I found is parents were always devastated. They had a hard time wrapping their head around that. So I imagine it's challenging for parents, it's challenging for teachers, it's challenging for the school district. Tell me a little bit about your years of experience and how it seems like you were on the end where you were helping to meet those challenges, to give parents and teachers and administrators resources. And so tell me a little bit about that.
It's just challenging, period. I'm going to let the audience know that I am a father of a son with special needs, an autistic person. His name is Matthew. And really, I have had, I don't know if the word beauty is the right word, but I've seen it on both sides. I worked with school districts and I am a father of a son with special needs. That really, um, when people found that out, they wanted to hear my story. And what I started doing, Penny, and this was all the way back in 2004, I started giving a lot of talks about the 7 stages of grief. And I would give this at the district would have me give that talk to parents. And it feels like when you have a child diagnosed with special needs, it almost feels like there's a grieving process. Like all the goals and dreams that you thought that that child could accomplish really come crashing down in one day. Um, it really affected me, yet it affects people in different ways. And whether it's the 5 stages of grief or the 7 stages of grief, I was going like, okay, can I check off this first stage? All right, I'm good. Let's go to the second. I'm done with that. And in reality, as you know, Penny, in life, it doesn't work that way. It's not linear. So there are days, even today, where I go back to a stage, even though I have gone through that entire process. But there are days that I have disappointment and that I'm trying to like some anger, like why did this happen to my son? So the whole process is really a challenge. And I think the advice I would give to parents and educators, and I do this in my talks, and I do this in my books, and I do this in my trainings, is give the students grace, and even as important is give yourself grace. Give yourself time to just go through and feel the emotions. Don't be hard on yourself. Easier said than done, Penny, right?
Right.
Right. But all the research, all the why meditation is working, everything is because when you're at your best, you can then serve your child the best. So
Absolutely. You've been so successful in this field because you have the perspective of a parent and an educator. That's probably been very helpful for you to be able to address both those audiences, the educator and the parents. And I noticed in your book, I have the workbook. It's so full of easy tools. Children, it's not a challenge. It's just a need, it's just a need. Like the same way you meet your child that doesn't have autism, the same way you meet their needs, you're going to meet this child's needs, only it's going to be a little different. It's not like nothing you can't accommodate. And you make it sound so like simple in here. Tell me a little bit about the book.
Well, first have to give my best friend Knox Williams credit because when I finished the book, and here's the
Yes.
book is primarily for educators, yet parents could use it as well. And my best friend Knox said, well, I have a friend, and why don't you do a workbook for parents? And I'm like, why did I not think of that? And then I'm like, oh no, I have to go back to the drawing board. I thought I finished. And actually, I've been told that the workbook is already having a profound impact on those parents who have purchased it. And it's just released. It was #1 in the Amazon behavioral special education behavioral section on new books. Very excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you for that. So you're right, though, Penny. I do want to discuss the workbook a little bit. It is practical tools and where educators and parents can collaborate. We talk so much about collaboration, but I think it's used like kind of as a punchline. Ooh, collaboration, and then everybody feels better. But is it really collaboration, or are we just paying lip service to it? So in the workbook, there are activities that parents can do that they can share with schools and the educators, and there are activities that the educators get to know more about the student. I love what you said. Like it's not rocket science. It's if there's one thing I can tell parents and educators, the more information that you share and the better your communication is, the more successful that student will be, period.
Mhm.
So that's the workbook piece, right? To the book itself, I have been doing trainings for, as you talked about, 4 decades, but I've been training educators for over 25 years. At last count, I've trained over 25,000 educators in all 50 states. And I trained in your motherland. I've done a training in Greece. So that was fantastic. And it's not bad when you get paid to go and do a training in Greece.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. So
But
we can say you're world renowned.
well, thank you. I do have another funny story. Is like I did a talk for a district on the campus of Yale, so I sometimes say, well, I did a lecture at Yale, but it was so
You did.
I did.
It's
So
fascinating because you guys, I have to let the audience know we're friends and I didn't know all this about you. You don't toot your horn enough.
I mean, I really am blessed with what I do, and I love what this podcast is about. I'm coming in with a servant's heart. Yes, I get to travel and that's fun, but sometimes I'm getting in just like I did this week from Alabama at 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's not all, champagne and roses, but I look at it from the perspective of if I can help one teacher, if that teacher can help one student, if I can help one parent, then that's the mission.
That's what this podcast is about, is people living with purpose. And you see, what happens in life is we go through the stages. We go through survival mode to success mode, and we're finally successful, and then we're living a life where we're going on vacations, and we got a nice little nest egg built, and then we reach a point and we're not happy because we're not living a life of significance. And above all else, we want to be significant. And I find when people reach a certain age and then they retire, they start to cognitively decline if they don't have a life of purpose. So then here comes someone like you who's been living a life of significance from the you've been fortunate enough that you found something to dedicate your life to, that you didn't wake up one day when you were 50 like I did and go, yeah, this isn't it. My heart's not in it. Because that's what happens. People get burnt out, but instead you've built this really impactful career, and now you're putting it all out there in a book, in a workbook. And I want to speak to this, what you were talking about, the collaboration between the teacher and the parent. I spent a very short time, like God knew I wasn't cut out for the classroom. What I had trouble with is that you have the students, they're your first priority, they should be. Then you have the
Mhm.
parents, then you have the other teachers, then you have the administration, and you're answering to all these people. And the thing about the student and parent partnership is, especially if you have children with special needs, children of any needs, the teacher has them for this many hours and she tries her best to establish routines and teach habits and and really help the children and meet their needs. And then we would say, and then they go home and it unravels. And then they come back to you the next day and you have to start all over again from square one because at home, they're not, a lot of times, parents are not disagreeing flat out with teachers and they're, I'm not going to do that. And they're not doing the things to help that child. So, can you speak to that collaborative? Because I know a lot of the parents in my world, yeah, they're like, what can I do to help Johnny? But what about the parents that are like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that. That's your job." How does that collaboration have you had some experience with that?
You bring up so many relevant points and practical points that you and I have witnessed when we were in the classroom every day. Shameless plug, everybody, but chapter 9 is bringing in century worlds, home and school working together in the book itself. So in the book, that is chapter 9. We have to be working together, right? And then the chapter before that, parents, I'm telling the educators, building trust with parents of sensory sensitive students. Like, you need to start building trust. And to me, the educators are the ones who have the most knowledge about what works best. And in this case, in my book, it's sensory challenges. And that's what the book's about. But you can't go in there as an educator and say, parents, this is what you must do. This is it. I know everything, right?
Right.
So the trust starts with the educator opening up and starting that collaborative effort. And parents, it's your responsibility, if they open up, to then reciprocate.
Mhm.
Hi, I have a worksheet I'd like you to fill out about what the student sensory challenges are. Do they not like tags on the back of their shirts? What is their happy place, right? If you go on vacation, where would they like to go? All of that needs to be shared. And to the educators who are listening, your job is to open that up. You can't make the parents do it, but hopefully in both of these books, that you see my lens, as you talked about, Penny, my lens as a parent, and my lens as somebody who works as an educator and someone who's trained 25,000 teachers. I'll give you a good point. Is when Matthew had a bad night and he was restless and one of his sensory things is he needed to have movement. So at 11 o'clock, Penny, I would hear keys, and Matthew would go get the keys, and that meant I had to go drive him around till he calmed down. Well, sometimes that's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm driving around the neighborhood. Thank goodness gas was cheaper then, right? But I, as a parent, told the teachers, Matthew did not get a lot of sleep today. So if he is putting his head down on the table, he's not being someone who's showing, uh, demand avoidance. He's just tired because this is what happened. And
Mhm.
so when I told them that, they gave him grace and knew that it's not going to be a day where I can push Matthew because it won't work. You're just going to
Mhm.
poke the bear. And Penny,
Mhm.
you talked about any student. If I'm a typically developing student and I stay up all night and then I go to school the next day, I'm not going to be in a good mood either.
Mhm. That makes
So,
sense.
so that's where that collaboration, it starts it with communication at the core of it.
Right. So you speak to teachers then to kind of help them understand how to approach parents. They're already overwhelmed, and now you're telling them to do something extra in the home, and maybe, so it's all about the approach, right? We're in this together.
It's all about the student. I mean, Penny, you know it, and that's exactly what it's about. If
Mhm.
it's not, then what are you doing there as an educator? If it's not about the student. And so the educators, please, give it all a branch. Parents, also give your educators grace, because what you said, Penny, the parents are overwhelmed. Now the educators are extremely overwhelmed.
Right.
If you go in with that open mind and giving each other grace, you're going to have a lot more wins than you will not.
I think that's what happens is some of the solutions are so simple, but we're so overwhelmed, we're not focusing on the solution. We're focusing on the problem. Look at what I've got to go through and look what I have to deal with, instead of focusing on how are we going to address the problem. I wanted to talk a little bit about parents that are homeschooling, because I've run into this a lot, where a lot of parents now are homeschooling, and I can imagine it's exciting, like, I'm going to homeschool, thank God, I'm able to do so. I'm able to stay home. You get the classroom ready, you're all excited, you buy your curriculum, you brush up on your math, you're all excited, and you start teaching, and lo and behold, now you realize what teachers go through, and you realize, wow, like, it's not all, it's not fun. A lot of times, if your child has a sensory need, I'm hoping that you also work with homeschool parents, because, gosh, they could really use the benefit of someone like yourself.
Some things that I do pro bono volunteer work, and one of them is I do talks to at universities of students who are becoming educators, because I want to get them to know the lay of the land on what they're getting into, regular and special education.
Mhm.
I do help consult with parents on what are some things that I can do to help my students succeed, and how can I communicate that to school districts on, like, without, and I tell everybody this, Penny, the moment you hire a lawyer is the moment that then it is now an adversarial relationship. Uh, Now, sometimes it's necessary, but when sometimes I do have to talk parents to parents and say, well, the whole, like, catch more flies with honey as opposed to vinegar. And so that, and I do have, I probably had, 3 or 4 dozen parents over my career that have homeschooled and have asked me about these things. And really, Penny, as you say that, this is really also the workbook, again, is also a little gift to any parent, right? Special needs not, but if you have a sensory challenge, then we as parents, we're looking at it almost like from a microscope. I almost like want to do this and, like, okay, I'm looking at it, but we're not looking at it from the whole child sometimes, because we feel we know them. So this
Mhm.
workbook, and there are other tools out there that I'm happy to, share with homeschoolers to help you prepare for that whole process. And this book I mean, this workbook was made for that. There are so many things that, as a parent of a homeschool, like, find out what are their sensory needs. Do an inventory of students' child's likes and dislikes. Does the child like the ocean? Then if the student is starting to stress out, well, then maybe play music of the ocean, maybe pull up a YouTube video of the ocean. So, Penny, I'm so glad you said homeschool parents, because the key word is they're teachers too, right?
Mhm.
And I know they take it seriously, and I know myself, as somebody who helps educators, I include them in that list of part of the educational process.
I want you to share, because one of the things when we're living a life of purpose, sometimes it's hard, right? We have a big vision. If you're like me, like, I'm a visionary. I love to create a big vision, and then things get tough. You might have had something in your career that posed a challenge for you, but I want to highlight, like, the book itself, because writing a book thing is, you have all this knowledge, and now you're putting it into a book and just the challenge. I want to talk because I'm helping people discover their purpose and passion. And a lot of people have that purpose, but then they give up when it gets tough. Tell me a little bit about the challenges that you faced either throughout your career or writing the book and how you overcame those challenges, how you stayed committed to your purpose when the going got tough.
Penny, great series of questions in there. And by the way, audience, I know Penny and I do know she's a visionary and it's great. And I love those times that we do share and we collaborate. And I think that's one of the things that I can point to right away is my name's on this book. But if you look at the acknowledgments, this is a community that wrote this book. I'm the voice of the community. And so one of the things that I lean into all the time, you, I lean into my other friends, I lean into colleagues, and the acknowledgments are in the book. The workbook was, I wanted to keep it as simple as possible and cost effective. But in terms of when challenges come up in life, you need that support system. I know you and I have conversations, and we both have said at times, I feel like I'm all alone,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
we're not. It's just something that we feel, and it's not quite reality. And we are humans, and sometimes we get that irrational brain, like nobody likes me, but there are so many people that do care. And that to me, when the roadblocks happen, there is that support system. And I think that is very, very critical. I'm going to lean into something that's very important. I've been on a journey. Life is a journey, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. I look at what Tony Robbins said, and I listened to this like a year and a half ago. I wish I listened to it 30 and a half years ago, because to me, this has grounded me every time that I get stuck. When he says that life is not what happens to you, life is what you focus on. It has changed my entire life. And it's not that, oh, woe is me, I'm the victim. Because in reality, book, work, any of that, the biggest challenge that I've ever come across is me.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. My putting limitations on myself, saying I cannot do it, saying I'm too old to do it, saying why would somebody listen to me because I don't have a PhD. All those things are the negative talk. And once you stop being the victim of your life and you start leading your life, and as you said, Penny, I love what you keep saying. I have been blessed to live my life with purpose, but that doesn't mean that I've lived my life without sabotaging myself.
Right.
And when you start working on that, doors open. Doors open monumentally. The reason why I can say this book happened, its primary purpose was because 3 years ago, I went up the corporate ladder, vice president of 3 different companies. I was too successful because those companies grew so much that they were sold and they brought in their own team. And then so the last time that happened, I'm like, why do I keep helping other companies?
Right.
And what does that mean to me? Like, why don't I help myself? And that book is because I took a leap. And by the way, audience, I'm a huge fan of the book, The Big Leap. It is an amazing book. I love that book. I've read it twice. And I took the leap. Penny, guess what, Penny? I'm blessed to know and see you take the leap.
Oh,
And
yeah. A
yeah.
big jump.
Yeah, the big jump, the big leap, whatever you would call it. And it might be a small little hurdle. Whatever it is, you have to take it. And so it has now been 2.5 years since I took that. And that's, now I do consulting for other companies. I do a lot of podcasts. And I also then have had time to write these books.
What you said about people, that was the first thing you said when I said, like, how did you do this? I have in my framework, I have framework of how to bring your dream to reality, starting with generating awareness, evaluating your choices, and then taking action. And in each step, I have components. And in the action phase, I have, things like plan and prepare and your personal habits. But I have two things in there that most people might not guess. And one was personal health, including mental health. And the other one was people. Because when we get passionate and purposeful about our journey, guess what happens? We neglect people and we neglect our health unknowingly. We're like, I'll catch you tomorrow. Like, or some of your friends call, they can't get a hold of you. Remember, my friends would go, like, can you go shopping? I'm like, well, not today. Well, like, when? Do you work every day? Yeah, I work every day. But that's one piece of the people equation. But the other piece is the people that you're going to leverage activities to. Like, if you're like, I don't know, you probably didn't design the cover. Maybe you got someone else to design the cover, right? Like you leverage the activities that are not in your wheelhouse and you lean on other people. And those are relationships too. Those are colleagues that you can call on and say, would you read my book? Would you reflect on this chapter? Can I run this by you? Oh, when you're down in the dumps, can they give you a little push? And so people, real important. And the other thing I wanted to touch on is when the obstacles come, I just did a chapter on confidence, and I came across this concept about anti-fragile confidence, meaning like your confidence comes from knowing, like, if I say I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write a book. And you're halfway in and you're like, this was a dumb idea. And you start leaning on other people, right, to help you because you're committed and you're confident you're going to get it done. And you have what's called anti-fragile confidence, meaning you'll take the blows and you'll come back stronger no matter what life throws at you. And it could be personal things in our life too, because usually it's personal things, right, in our lives. No matter what life throws you, you're going to come back stronger. And the last part that you were talked about, the other companies. Like, why are we so quick to sell ourselves and what we do to someone else, to give all our gifts, all our passion, all our purpose, put it in someone else's hands? Because since then you've started your own company, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Speak to that. Same with me. When I got into coaching, I could have worked for Brendan Burchard in his growth company. I could have gone to the John Maxwell team and applied there. I had an opportunity at Keller Williams to be a productivity coach. And something kept telling me, I want to do my own thing, which is crazy, right? Because it's so much easier to just work for someone else. But at the same time, it's stifling, right? So speak to that and how you're like, nah, I'm going to do my own thing and the courage to do that.
Necessity is the mother of invention. And so I left another company. They said, your services are no longer needed because we have our own team. You can stay on as a consultant, but then I'm like, everything that I built, you're going to have somebody tear it down and build it back up while it was very successful in the first place. One of the best things I've ever done years ago is I created, and as you see, I'm drinking, like I created my IEP Curriculum and Consulting LLC. Taking that first step, even before you're ready to take the second step, is so critical, right? I thought one day I want to start my own company, but I wasn't ready yet for two different reasons. Reason number one, there were some companies that took care of me. And if you have a company that you work with who values you and pays you commensurate and puts family first and has a great benefit package and it's a respectable place, stay there, stay there, right? But I knew the first time I went to a company that I wasn't quite happy with is when I started my LLC. And I started doing some consulting work on the side. I had the foundation. So when it was time, Penny, that I had already had created my company logo, the company colors, letterhead, but the LLC, in my estimation, was the thing that I knew when it was time. I was already 3 or 4 steps ahead of what I needed to be. If I wasn't, Penny, I think I just would have shriveled up and taken another job at another company who might have liked me, paid me okay. I would still have a purpose-driven life, but it also means I want to work for a purpose-driven company. And that company's mine now. That's the purpose, right? That I know 100% when I wake up and I look at pictures of my son and I look at, my family, that's my people who I work for.
That's incredible. Oh, I'm sure we could talk. I don't know how, like, we do these podcasts and they're only an hour, or and we probably lose people at a half hour. There's so much out there. Really, we could go on for hours, but I'm happy to say that for our audience, like, I know that Pete and I will be collaborating and coming up with something for the Rise Up Collective. It is a community where I'm helping other people who are living a life of purpose kind of bring their gifts into our community and share with our community, because I want people to know that this exists. I actually have met women lately, a couple of women that have children with autism, that have this dream of creating different things. And I really think, like, oh, they need to hear from you. And I'm excited to say that even though our podcast is short, considering all the things you have to share, we're going to work on something so that you can go deeper and share more of what you're doing, and more how you can help other families, other teachers that need this. I'm sure the resources vary from school district to school district, and maybe not every educator has gotten the pleasure to hear one of your talks. And so we're definitely going to work on things together in the future to help you continue to bring your purpose to other people, so that it kind of lights a fire. When you are living this life of purpose, you shine the light for others. So there might be a parent out there or a teacher out there that's struggling. They're so consumed by the challenge, and they're not looking at the solution. And you're providing solutions. Your company is, your book is, the workbook is. I look forward to future projects. What do you see in your future moving forward, continuing to live a life of purpose?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Penny, because I have two more plugs, and one of them is for you. Audience, I have taken part or the beginning parts of Penny's coursework, and it's spot on. I mean,
Well,
if you are in that position to where you need a little boost or a big boost, right? Take her courses. I mean, I
thank you.
feel
Thank you
like
for
I
that.
I feel like I'm living a purpose-driven life, but it's like we talked about. I look at it now and I read what you're doing and like, okay, I have a new renewed sense of purpose, even though I have purpose.
Awesome. Take
And
it to
that's
the
what
next level.
that's what you're doing. The next thing is we haven't even talked about it because it's not released yet, but in pre-publication is a book that I have written 4 chapters on, and it is called Raising a Highly Sensitive Child. It is by Jill Gilbert, who I did a podcast with last year, and she was the executive assistant for a while for Jennifer Love Hewitt,
Yeah.
and she decided to have a child by herself, and he is highly sensitive. He's an amazing young man. And so this book is a what to do when I have a child and he's or she's highly sensitive. Within that, I write a couple of chapters about schools and collaboration, but the chapter I'm most proud of in that book, Penny, is for dads too. And I talk from a dad,
Thank you. Hallelujah.
I talk to a dad, from one dad to another, and the whole chapter could be summed up as love your child. I mean, but I give tips and trade secrets and the things I've done that I've messed up on. So that book will be amazing. Her website is Calm Mama Revolution, and she's doing great work out there. And she's somebody probably who you should have because she is
Yeah.
definitely living a purpose driven life. What's the next phase? Talk to more teachers and talk to more parents. I was fortunate to talk in front of 250 parents at an autism conference in Forney, Texas. Forney ISD hosted it, and I don't get paid for those. I don't want to get paid for those because it's just me like spreading the word on how to help. I hope I can just talk in venues like this with you and at conferences to parents.
Thank you for all you do. You really give parents a sense of hope. I don't want to stereotype because it's turning, it's changing, but typically men have not asked for help. Men have not asked for support. My dad, I was like, wanting to find him a support group. My mom has dementia and he's having to navigate that. Men don't want to talk about it. They don't want help, typically. But I see the tide changing and I see more and more men seeing, oh, these women got it going on. They ask for help and they open up their heart. It's difficult because it's crushing to them too. I love that. And the other thing I wanted to touch on super quick is, yes, my mission is to help people find their purpose and then equip them with goals and strategies. But it's also to help people that have a purpose find goals and sometimes people have a purpose and they don't have a strategy and they're just spinning around in idea land, right? And the other one is people that have a purpose, been living a life of purpose, and now they're ready to take it to the next level. So that's you. I hope to dig out from you, like, what bigger stage are you, what TED talk are you going to do next, what awareness are you going to bring to parents and to educators, and how are you going to strengthen that collaborative? There's so much work to be done, and you're just getting started.
I want to be known as a great dad. Everything else is secondary. So if you want to be known for a great dad, you have to step back and really accept help. What I've told my boys, when I know that you've grown into a man, okay, is when you start asking for help unsolicited. Asking. I feel that that has started to happen. You don't have to give up that manhood to ask for help. And I think that is the biggest, really, falsehood that we as men are living. That you have to, once you ask for help, then you're not a man anymore.
Yeah,
And my philosophy is, if you don't ask for help, are you really a grown man?
I love it. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see what comes next for you, and I can't wait to see what you'll bring into our community. And I'd love to introduce you to my educator friends. And this idea, this collaboration idea, it's just at the heart of what I do. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
Thank you for you took this leap. I've been with you on part of this journey, and you just said, I remember, like, I'm just going to do it, right? And you're here, and I think the community owes you some gratitude because you're connecting me with other parents, and that's you to me seem like, and you've always been a great friend, but you now are taking that to the level of I want to help my fellow people in my community and expand that. And that's your purpose. And we're glad that you're here doing it.
Thank you so much. You
Thanks, Penny.
guys, all of Pete's information is in the notes. And so be sure to get on Amazon and order his book and learn more about how he is living a life of purpose. Thank you for tuning in to the People of Purpose podcast. If this episode encouraged you, please like, follow, subscribe, download, and most importantly, leave us a review. Your engagement helps me live out my purpose, and even more, it helps me reach more people so they can rise up and reach their dreams too. Be sure to visit the riseupcollective.org. It's a community where we climb together, connect deeply, collaborate boldly, create with intention, and contribute with purpose. You'll find stories, resources, and even a chance to share your own. And if you're ready to take the next step, I provide solo, self-paced coaching, group coaching, and one-on-one coaching. Visit pennypeerboom.com to learn more and schedule a free consultation to learn more about my coaching, speaking, and instructional design services. Together, we're proving that ordinary people can live extraordinary lives of purpose. Let's rise up together.